So a little part of me dies whenever I see someone waste food, and it goes beyond the plate. This is part 3 of my series on wasted food. And so in the first part, I talked a little bit about seeing a family throw away a bunch of food at the dinner table at a restaurant and how it made me feel. And then it made me reflect on my upbringing, how growing up, my mom really kind of guilt-tripped us into finishing our plates, which led me to kind of this toxic relationship with food. And throwing it, and then jumping forward into the future as a mom now, I'm seeing similar patterns in myself and the things that I'm trying to do to break the cycle so that my kids don't have a toxic relationship with food. Then I talked about how I saw it as an opportunity, because I didn't like having that internal battle with myself at dinner every time, where whenever I saw my daughter leave a few strands of noodles in her bowl, or pieces of bread, that I didn't like having that internal battle with myself, and it was a problem that I saw. And so whenever you have a problem, if you want to grow, view your problems as life lessons, and you can grow from them. And so what I did was I started changing my mindset around my values. And I will always value resourcefulness, but the reasons and the context behind those values can change. And so what I did was I changed my mindset into thinking about resourcefulness as a way to save the planet, not as a way to show my love and to ensure that my kids are fed, and that I'm emotionally triggered, not because they're not appreciative of my efforts and time, but I'm triggered because I see a greater purpose in in ensuring that we reduce the amount of food that gets wasted. So this last section is the actions that you can take that's worked for me, things that I do regularly. Like, I'm a realist, I'm practical, I walk the walk, I talk the talk, I walk the talk, okay? And so these are some of the things that I do to help reduce food waste, and I really hope that my story inspires you to think just another time, think twice when you throw away half your burger out when you go to a restaurant, or when you're at the dinner table and your kid has left a bunch of food in their bowl, and you just don't want to save it, and you'd rather just chuck it into the compost or chuck it down the garburator. To think twice, maybe put it into a container, put it in the fridge, and try the next day for them to make them eat it. Or not make them eat it, but get them to serve that. So the first tip is buy what you need, okay? For me, before I go grocery shopping, I always go shop in my own I shop in my fridge first, right? I do a quick inventory check of my pantry, of my deep freezer, of my fridge, to see what I already have, so I don't double dip on something, right? I don't buy doubles of something. Why do I need to buy something that I already have? There's no point. And most of the time, because I've done this so often, I kind of have an idea of what I have, that what I really do need is fresh fruits and vegetables. That's it. And when I do go out, I only buy enough to make dinners for that week. And I only buy produce that's on sale, because oftentimes when produce is on sale, it's also in season. And produce that's in season are often locally sourced. And so that means they don't have to travel far to get to my grocery store. And I have a list. I always make a list before I go out, and I stick to it. Try your best to stick to it. I do buy in bulk, but only when there's a sale, but only for things that I know our family will eat. You know what I mean? For instance, if there's a big sale on boxed mac and cheese or microwavable dinners, I'm not going to buy, even if it costs me pennies a box or container, because those aren't things I enjoy making or eating. Like boxed mac and cheese, it's very easy to make macaroni and cheese with cheese and dried macaroni. You don't need to buy the box and the powder. Totally fine if you enjoy it, no judgment here. And I just know that these things will sit on my shelf in my freezer, wasting space until the kids move out. They can take their mac and cheese with them. But then if I see 3 kilograms of ground pork at Costco that costs a fraction of what it does at other stores, then I'm hauling that baby into my cart, along with their massive bags of flaxseed, of their chia seeds and raisins that I use for baking and throwing into a bunch of stuff. There's an entire video and blog post on some cooking and cooking tips and hacks that you can use for your family so that you can be an efficient mom or efficient parent who cooks at home. And ground pork is like a Chinese staple, okay? And so it's like one of the items that I know our family will eat, and I know I will use, and I will cook, and we go through it, we consume it. So second tip is don't buy food you hope you will eat or because you want a good deal, okay? And this taps into our beliefs, right? It's like someone who buys a bunch of bag salad because they want to start a diet on Monday, right? They go grocery shopping on a Sunday and they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be like super healthy this week. I'm gonna just buy chopped salad and a bunch of vegetables, and I'm gonna like start my diet and just eat salad all week. But then like they end up going out to eat every night, and then by Friday or Saturday, the sad looking wilted green slime that's left in their fridge just goes to the trash. Or it's like the person who stocks up on yogurt because it's like a great deal that day at the store. And they don't want to miss out on the great deal, right? It's like that fear of missing out, the FOMO. Like, oh my God, it's like so cheap. We got to buy a bunch of it because it's so cheap. But they don't even like yogurt, and it ends up rotting in the back of their fridge. So the next tip is about imperfect fruit, day-old bread, and enjoy tonight meats. So as mentioned in the previous video about wasted food, 12% of wasted food is at the retailer level. And this corresponds to 1.31 million metric tons of food. And in the report, it talks a little bit of reasons why this waste happens. And so remember back when everyone was stocking up on toilet paper, and they're like this, when you go grocery shopping, the shelves were like half empty, and you just wanted to get what you needed and get the hell out of there, right? It's because retailers want their shoppers to enjoy their experience, because the longer they stay, the more they buy. So therefore, they often overstock their shelves because they know consumers prefer full shelves. So you walk into the store, it's half empty. It just doesn't feel great, right? And you're just gonna like kind of like the last pickings. I don't want to be there. I just want to grab and go, right? But what happens is when retailers overstock, it leads to wasted food and expired produce. Another reason that 12% of food waste that comes from retailers is because when the workers and customers like us handle the fruit, like when you go grocery shopping and you're picking out the best apples or plums or whatever, oftentimes they're bruised ones and you don't choose those ones. And when the workers stock them, they also sometimes drop the fruit or mishandle them, and bruised fruit often don't get purchased and they end up in the landfill. So what I do is during my grocery shopping trips, what I like to do is I actually go to the bread section, and sometimes they'll have day-old breads that you can buy for like 50% off the regular price, and I'll grab like a bag of them, and there's like a random assortment of different buns. There could be like some cheese buns, there could be some like Kaiser buns, multigrain, just whatever they had left over. And so I'll just grab a bag, and it's super cheap. Like it's 50% off if you bought like an entire bag of one of those types of buns. What I like to do is once I get home, I throw that bag into the freezer. Bread freezes very nicely, and if I don't have any bread for that week. The grocery store that I go to, they often have like enjoy tonight meats that are about to expire. And we'll talk a little about the expiry dates, that they often put expiry dates that are often not exact dates, like they're not exactly when they're actually going to go bad. And so anyway, so the stores would often put these stickers on, they'll like knock a couple of bucks off, and I grab like a pack. Like right now, being a foodie family, it's a great opportunity to try different cuts of meats. And right now we're really enjoying the mild Italian sausage that's made in the store. So it really gives you a chance to try different meats. And lastly, I'm a baker and I love making my own muffins and loaves. It's just a really great way to feed your family healthy snacks. It's also, more healthy than if you were to buy any loaves. If you like to bake, right, you also have, a lot of people times they'll say like, well, I don't have time to bake. Well, that's, you make time for the things you care about. Stores sometimes will have like old fruit that they'll bag up, and they can tell they're kind of like almost overripe to be sold. So they'll put in a bag and they'll put like, I don't know, like 50% off, or like it's half the price. It almost costs like pennies per pound for this type of fruit, and often they're bananas and apples because they often overstock those things. So for the bananas, I'll peel the peel off and put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. And then when I want to make banana bread, I just take that puppy out, defrost it, and make your own banana bread. Apples, you can totally make applesauce and then freeze them. It's so easy to make applesauce. Like, I don't even know why people buy applesauce, but if you're one of those people who buys applesauce, like, that's totally fine. But you can really easily make your own applesauce by boiling them, steaming them, and then just using like a hand blender or even a regular blender and just blending all that stuff. Like, just remove the stems and seeds before you do it. And that's pretty much how you make applesauce. So the next tip is store your foods properly. As I mentioned before, I put bread in my freezer because we just don't eat enough bread to go through it before it kind of starts to go stale. So I like to put bread in the freezer. As for fruits and vegetables, as I mentioned, I like to store like old fruit that, you know, I make them into sauce or something like that. Berries you can easily freeze. Another thing is about washing your fruits. Just don't wash them until you're about to eat them, because once, especially berries and grapes, like once they've touched water, it's easily to spoil. Like it spoils easier and quickly. Certain fruits like bananas and apples, they release ethylene gas, which actually causes other fruit around them to ripen. So store those maybe separately or in like a separate bag or something like that. It's also a great way to ripen really raw, like unripened fruit. Like if you want to eat like a mango the next day, you just put like an old banana near it and it'll actually help ripen. Or avocados are a really good way to ripen those two unripened avocados. Next tip, don't lose it, freeze it. Like if you haven't heard me talk about my deep freezer, my love for my deep freezer, I love it. That's one of the first things we bought when we moved to a bigger place. I mean, there's like so many things you can freeze. You can freeze like, you know, bread, blueberries, yams, zucchinis. You can be like ham. You can like when you buy like a rotisserie chicken or something, or buy just a regular chicken and you cook it, you can freeze the entire carcass and make soups and stews and conges for later. You can freeze an entire cauliflower. You can like, and then you can also freeze meals that you've already made, right? Like you can pretend you make way too much lasagna or way too much spaghetti. You can actually freeze that and then eat it the next week or two. Another thing that is a good tip for you, if you're a cheese person or you kind of like cheese but not too much, you can always freeze shredded cheese. Cheese is one of those things that like it can go bad pretty quickly. Like the mold looks really gross. So shred it before, put it into a Ziploc bag, and then throw that into the freezer. And then once you have like a dish you want to just sprinkle a little bit of cheese on top, like, you know, you're making burritos, you're making, you know, a pasta dish, or you're making whatever, you just throw a little bit of cheese on top and then you can throw that bag back in the freezer. And I mentioned the old fruit that I make into sauces, and then also banana, like any sort of breads and loaves and muffins that you make, and you can make huge portions of them, you can freeze those. And then the latest thing that I saw that you can freeze, I actually saw from David Chang's Instagram video, is soft-boiled eggs. So like, I haven't tried it yet, but I mean, imagine it saves tons of time from you boiling an egg. So, and it's a great time because it's a great thing to do because when you want to buy eggs in bulk, like if you're a family that eats a lot of eggs like us, oftentimes like there'll be these huge sales on eggs, and so you can buy a bunch of them and then boil, you know, an entire dozen, and then peel the shell and put them in a Ziploc bag and freeze them. And so the next thing you make like a kimchi jjigae, or like a kimchi stew, or even you're making some noodles and soup, just like throw that frozen boiled egg into like the soup, and like in the last 10 minutes of cooking, it's just for it to warm through, and then you've got like a really good and healthy source of protein. The next tip is get creative in the kitchen. If you haven't already learned how to cook, please do. Like even the simplest things you can make, like with eggs, boiling something or steaming something. You don't even have to be like a whiz. But slow cooked dishes are like one of the easiest and simple ways to cook. Like you can make pasta casseroles and make rice and beans, make stews, congee. Like these slow cooked meals are like, or like one pot meals. Like, you know, have you ever seen that YouTube channel Tasty. They do like an entire thing, like an entire playlist of one pot meals that you can make. And they're like great, they're like fast, they're easy, you just throw everything into the pot and just heat. Like you don't need like crazy chef skills to make a one pot meal. And then you just leave it on there and cook. And it's also, they have everything in them. Like it's great for like busy people like myself. I'm a mom, I work, I've got 2 kids, you know, like you just want to get dinner ready. It's such a great way to cook a meal because it's got your veggies, vegetables, you've got your protein and your starch in the big pot, and that's all you have to eat. And also this type of cooking is like a great way to kind of throw things in that are like kind of getting wilted. Like if you've got some wilted celery, bendy carrots that aren't snapping, you know, you can kind of throw them into a soup. And it's a great way for kids to actually get vegetables in their meals. It's just, and it's a great way to be allowed to be resourceful in the kitchen, so that, you know, when you see something that's about to go bad, instead of throwing it away, you're like, well, I'm going to use that and make, you know, a stew or a soup or throw that into a pasta dish. I mean, the other day I found some cucumber, like I had 2 old cucumbers in the back of my fridge. And I was like, okay, I've got cucumbers, what am I gonna make? And I also had some okra in my freezer. So I decided, you know what, I'm gonna make like some, like kind of like a gumbo inspired dish. And so I got my big pot out and, you know, ripped open a package of my Enjoy Tonight sausages, threw that in, threw the okra, threw some all the chopped up cucumbers. I had some green onions in my garden. I'll talk about gardening in my next video. Had a can of tomatoes, and, you know, and then just kind of like cooked everything down. That's all you really, and then some, like maybe some chicken stock, fresh herbs if you have, or just herbs, salt and pepper, and then cooked everything down, let that on, and then microwave some leftover rice. Like if you ever have, like if you have rice, such an easy thing to cook. Rice cooker, like fill the thing with water, press a button, and then you've got rice. If not, we had leftover rice that day, and then just that's a meal in itself. You've got your protein from your sausage, you've got your vegetables, and then it's a great warm and tasty meal and healthy for your family, that you're not wasting any of that old vegetables in your fridge. Like, I know cooking, it takes a lot of time, effort, and patience to learn. Any skill requires a lot of that. But once you reach that level where you can create a meal without really thinking about it, and you just throw something together based on what you have in the fridge, then it really, it makes meal planning less of a headache. Like, you don't really have to plan. You kind of just go in your fridge and go like, well, I got this, this, and this. Let's just make something. Rather than trying to think like, okay, this week I'm going to have this, this, and this, and this. To me, that often is more of a headache, because that means I have to think ahead. And it's like, oh crap, I don't have onions to make this dish. I have to go buy onions. Whereas if you just like have, oh, I don't have onions, but I have green onions in my garden. Or, oh, I don't have carrots for this dish, so I'm just gonna throw some yams in. You know, you can just kind of substitute and be resourceful in the kitchen so that it's not a headache. So that's the first half of the tips that I have. The next video is just even more tips on how to reduce wasted food. Let me know some of your tips, some of the things that you've done. What is your favorite one pot meal? I'd love to know.